Welcome to the Retirement Roadmap by SHP Financial, a podcast empowering today's retirees and pre-retirees to make well-informed financial decisions that will help you spend more time living and dreaming than worrying and wondering. Join me, Matthew Peck, along with my co-hosts, Gregoire and Keith Ellis, as we share actionable financial strategies and insights, as well as interview top thought leaders in the world of finance, accounting, and estate planning. This is all aimed at preparing you for the retirement you've always dreamed of. Our high-quality holistic planning process has helped thousands of families retire and create what we like to call the ripple effect. The Retirement Roadmap is your guide to financial freedom. Are you ready to get started? Let's go.
Welcome, everyone, to another SHP Retirement Roadmap podcast. We have the original band back together. It's been a while, I think, since we've all been in studio together, but we're looking at Gregoire, Keith Ellis, and Matt Peck, co-founders since 2003 here, and we're kind of looking back at 2025 as a whole. Now, as we start 2026, and I know this gets old saying, Keith and Matt, but it's crazy how time flies, and the older we get, the faster it seems to go. But yeah, how's everyone doing? Ready to get off to a new year?
You're right. It just flies by. Like, I feel like September, and then it's basically New Year's, like boom, within 2 seconds. And I was talking to some of our younger employees earlier, and I was like, it's kind of, I don't want to say worse, but time goes faster once you start to have kids, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like, the school years just fly by, the time just flies by, and yeah, here we are, 2026. Happy New Year, guys, and let's go.
Yeah, no, specifically about the kids, I mean, especially as you measure your own age with them, the fact that they're all approaching college
it's
age
wild.
is still that is, I'm having a tough time processing that. So I know we're supposed to look back rather than looking forward into 2026, but it certainly really hits home the idea of time flying.
We talk to clients all the time about this, but and they always joke around because our average client age is probably 62. We have some that are in their 90s, some in their 40s, but our average is probably in our 60s. And they say, just wait, you're in your late 40s. Well, doesn't get any better, because think about when we were younger. I always think about summers. And the summers used to seem like it was forever. Yeah. And now, as soon as it hits July 4th, it's like,
oh yeah,
done.
It's Christmas.
Yeah, then exactly.
Swear to God. I always tell my wife, I'm like, get the Christmas tree out. It's July 4th.
Yeah,
no, I'm not even joking.
It's so fast. So I think it'd be helpful for everyone just to kind of understand, as we look back in 2025, I think it's almost even better to look back at where we were, because we have so many clients that remember us back in 2003 and 4 when we first started. And they say, I remember when I came in and you guys were doing this and that, and you had no help and no employees, and you're running around. And I think we still run around with our like chickens with our heads cut off. But with that being said, I think it's important because we were at the end of last year, Laura and I did a little workshop for a pastor at his church, and it went really great down in Cedarville. And as we were talking, and someone asked a question, and I thought it was a great way to kind of transition to last year and even the last several years at SHP. But they asked, what's like the difference between SHP and like a huge company that everyone's heard of compared to like a small mom and pop 2-person company, right? And I think that's a good way to start, because I'll give you the answer and then we can talk about it a little bit. But what I always say is, that's why I'm proud of this team. We still have that small time feel. When clients come in, everyone knows them. They're welcome. They walk down, they get greeted with coffee and menu, and they just feel like they're at home, and that's the feeling we want. But I think sometimes you go into these huge, big institutions that everyone knows the name, and you get kind of like a portfolio, and it's kind of cookie cutter, and you have I was talking to someone, they said, I've had like 3 different advisors since I've been there, and they don't really do much more than a portfolio planning. Then if you have a small mom and pop that's like 2 people, how can they do all the things that are needed within a full plan, from income to taxes, to investments, to healthcare, to estate planning? How are you able, when we see what it takes to do that, not to bash a small 2-person, 3-person company, but how do you actually do all that? And so I think it's good to break out, and Keith and Matt, if you guys want to start, just where we came from, which is just a small company that didn't know where we were going back 20-something years ago, to having different divisions of our team that work for the benefit of our clients.
Well, it was interesting. I was talking to the gentleman over at State Street, Mike Aroney, about and Aiden, who is obviously a shipmate here, about how we were able to grow the company, right? And I talked about how it was a combination of two things. Number one, we had we did the tried and true method of over-the-top customer service, right? Of making sure that people were getting, phone calls returned within 24 hours, and recognizing every email, and doing things that to us seemed absolutely like a no-brainer. Like, of course you do that. Of course you do that type of customer service.
Common courtesy.
Right. And so we were able to kind of harness that, and then, but at the same time, ride the wave of where the industry was going and cutting edge planning. Because when we first started out 20 years ago, even more now, we were still in the land of sort of stock jockeys, and just brokers were out there, making picks and making commissions off of trades. They weren't really providing planning. So we were sort of at the very forefront of realizing that, oh my gosh, like people need full service. They need the 5 areas. They need the income, the investment, the tax, healthcare, and the legacy. And so when you combine sort of cutting edge planning with traditional and tried and true customer service, you really have SHP. And to go back specifically to your question, Derek, that takes people, and that takes dedication, and that takes a full fleshed out team that knows what they're doing, that's specializing in these roles. Because one example of it is, this past year, the OBBA was passed, the one big beautiful bill, massive implications to tax planning, and with the SALT deductions and the Social Security deductions and all of those different things. And if you're not paying attention to that, in sorting through all the details, forget about the politics, but if you're not sorting through all of the consequences of that tax bill, then you're behind the 8 ball. Right, you're losing basically because you're not taking advantage of what's available. So you need all of those things. You need customer service. You need people that are getting ahead of it, staying on top of it, and providing that full value in those 5 areas.
Yeah, to build on what Matt said, I think it's the customer service aspect. Excuse me, but also the specialization, like you said. You know what I mean? Like, I always say to folks, most people that come in to visit us have done a really good job saving, right? They've done a really good job to put themselves in a position to retire, or at least think about retiring. And now they've come to a point where, the advisor that they had before isn't the advisor that they need going forward, because they don't do all these different things. They focus maybe more on just pure accumulation and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but as you build your net worth, you need to start to think differently. And I always say you want to be a good steward of your money for both for you and your family. And I think having a plan in place provides confidence to live the best retirement that you can. Like, how do you know it's possible if you don't have a plan? Like, people spend months planning for a vacation for a week.
Yeah.
And people spend an hour retiring. You know what I mean? It makes no sense. You know what I mean? That's the next 25, 30, 35 years of your life. So I think that's where, beyond what Matt just said, I think that's where we as a company really stand out and really help people know what they have, embrace what they have, and learn how to maximize, their retirement going forward.
Well, I think just to take that one step further, if you look back on where we are in 2025, heading into 2026, I think it's just more of, I think this industry is kind of thought of as sales, and our whole philosophy is here's what we do. If it helps you, great. If not, no big deal. We're not trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. But I think looking back at where we are, and this is something we dreamed of 20 years ago, but to see it happen, I'm thinking of a client that Laura and I work with. They've been with us for probably 8 years, and 15, 20 years ago, this was not possible. But when they come in, number one, they have a full portal. They can log in, see all their accounts in one spot, and their plan is attached to that. So they can kind of see where they're headed, what their projections are, how does things look. If we want to buy a second house, how does that affect things? If we want to spend pay for our grandkids' education, how does that look? But more importantly, so they meet with Laura and I all the time on just general high level, portfolio management planning. But in the last few weeks, at the end of 2025, they had a meeting with our head CFP, one of our CFPs, Alina, and she's a certified financial planner. She geeks out on, for lack of a better word, She knows the OBBA and all the different congressional terms. She's brilliant with that stuff. And she took their situation. She met with them, did all applications to their plan, gave them, Roth conversion ideas, donor advised funds, all kinds of like ways to continue to do what they want to do and help organizations and so forth, but also be very tax efficient and improve their tax situation going forward. The same client has, after I get off this call today, has called myself, Laura, and one of our CFAs, Zach, who's a certified, no, not CFA. Yeah.
Chartered Financial Analyst. There you go.
Too many acronyms here. But the same client, that client now has a call with Zach because his portfolio has done very well, but he had questions on how much of it is AI related and do we want to tweak that at all for his specific situation. So think about that one client. That one client's met with our attorney, built a trust plan. They've sat with our team. They know what direction they're going because Laura and I manage a situation ongoing. But behind the scenes, they have meetings with a CFA on our team, a CFP on our team for different situations. And that's just maximize. Think about it. That's if you just have a portfolio and someone's picking stocks, bonds, mutual funds, compare that to this type of plan where in the service that our clients are getting on top of just the customer service and making them feel good about themselves. I think that's what really separates when people ask in the year, looking back the last few years. I mean, level of service and capabilities was not, we didn't have that 10 years ago.
No, absolutely. And then to bring in kind of like recent events, I mean, if you don't have a plan, kind of what Keith was mentioning about sometimes the people will spend all that time planning vacations, but not in regards to retirement. I mean, if you recall, in 2025, there was something called Liberation Day. Right? April 2025 is when, what hit the fan. The markets were plummeting. I mean, they were falling 5, 10, 15%, all in sort of a short amount of time.
Is that in April?
That was April. Yeah, April 2025, right? And so the joke was, those initial policies were liberating you from your money, right? Oh, yeah. Now, if you were, yes, I'm sorry, Jamie, was that a dad joke? Sorry. Yeah. Our producer was giving a look. But the reason why I bring that up is because events like that are going to happen, right? Whether it's because of sort of chaotic foreign policy, sorry, I have to slip that in, or whether it is because of COVID, pandemic, or, a temper tantrum with the raising interest rates, whatever it may be, there's going to be times the market is highly volatile, and you're going to be looking up and you're going to be seeing red. You're going to see the S&P dropping and the Dow Jones dropping. If you don't have a plan, you are going to overreact. You are going to worry. You are going to be concerned. Your emotions will be on the fritz, especially if you're retired.
Yeah, and you let politics get in the way.
Right. Oh yeah. If you put that in there, so it points out that of the importance of having a plan during those types of market volatility. So that was our 2025 market volatility. Who knows what 2026 market? Who knows about 2030? There'll be market volatility then too. But one thing that's absolutely constant is that if you have a plan, you can manage you can manage the roller coaster a whole lot better.
So I was going to say, Keith, one of the things as we look into 2026, this is something that again, as we, think about it, years ago when we were managing $100 million and now we're, have over $2.5 billion under advisement here at SHP. And that's not saying it to brag. It's just saying we have to step up our level. In order to clients to be here and want to stay here for the long run, you have to provide great service and great planning. And so one of the initiatives we have in 2026, which is kind of a grim thing, but kind of a very important thing, is no one thinks about this. Everyone builds trust, right? And in Massachusetts, once you hit over $2 million, which can be done, I don't want to say easily, but if you have houses and life insurance and 401ks, once you have over $2 million, guess what? Your estate becomes taxable. And there's certain planning around trust planning that has to be done to preserve certain benefits and to reduce taxes for the next generation. Well, one of the areas, most attorneys, they'll draft trusts and they'll draft documents. But when someone passes away, there's so much work that has to be done. Obviously, the worst part is the spouse is going through a tremendous loss, which in the family, and that goes without saying. But from a planning standpoint, there's a lot that has to be done to preserve all the planning that was done when they were alive and well. And so a lot of attorneys don't do that. And so we have some that do, but now almost kind of in-house, we're able to bring in a service. And Keith, I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit, that helps, that just basically takes care of that process for our clients.
Yeah, I mean, estate settlement it's just an area that is often goes forgotten, I guess.
Yeah.
Until that time comes, which is obviously not the time to be thinking about it. You want to, just like anything else, you want to have a plan in place. You want to have your trustees in place. You probably want to meet the trustees as well, so you're familiar. Your kids are familiar with the person that you're going to be working with when that time comes. And sadly, 2025, I went through a few of these with a couple clients that unexpectedly ran into some health issues and passed away, which was terrible. And it's just a long, arduous process that a lot of people don't think about. It's like, hey, I got to get my trust set up. Okay, perfect. Okay, the trust is there to do everything that you want it to do. Direct the assets to where you want them to go. Try to minimize taxes as much as possible. Avoid probate. Keep everything private. That's the idea of these types of trusts. But then 10, 15, 20 years goes by and you've done all the tweaking along the way on the front end of the trust. Sadly, a spouse passes or the second spouse passes and now the family's stepping in to deal with the estate settlement and they're scratching their heads because no one ever talks to them about that, right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's a process.
You need to talk to them and you need to educate. You need to educate the kids as well, because the minute things are tweaked or changed or tinkered with, that could ruin the integrity of the trust and you could lose a lot of benefits there.
What absolutely blows me away, honestly, is that you can have a very good estate plan and it's still a lot of work after the fact.
Absolutely.
That's what blows me away. I mean, so two things. A, obviously still sit down with an estate planning attorney and make sure you have a plan. B, to Keith's point, make sure you kind of understand it and walk through the people. But I just can't imagine people that don't have a plan. I mean, if it's a lot of work with actually having a really good buttoned up estate plan. Imagine if you don't have an estate plan, it's even more of a nightmare. I can't imagine it.
Well, that's why it's important to make sure your advisor, if you have an estate plan, make sure they're familiar with that process. And anyone can say, oh yeah, I know how to do that. But do they really know how to work with firms on like 706 and filing this?
So much work.
Yeah. So that's an important part, is like we're now adding that as additional semi in-house value add with a really close affiliate. So that's a huge benefit, I think, as we continue to grow our suite of offerings at SHP Financial. And what we try to do is look at every single dot every I and cross every T for our clients, so that like they can go on vacation, they can go into retirement and not have to wonder, hey, I wonder if this is happening. No. Now, if someone's listening and they just like, hey, that's all I have is a pile of money in 401k and no one ever talks to you about any of this stuff. Well, you're someone that might want to benefit from this type of planning, because again, without this type of planning, it's hard to know, like Keith mentioned earlier, what it is that, like, how do you even know what to do, when to do it, how to do it, what accounts to pull from first, how to donate, like it's just so many things. So,
well, I was going to say, sorry to interrupt, because you talked about sort of new services that were rolling out. I did just want to kind of thinking in terms of, obviously it's a jogging the memory now, but think about some of the things that we did roll out also in 2025 is on the investment side of it. Two interesting things on the SMAs, or the separately managed accounts.
Good point.
There was specific podcasts about this. However, to remind all of our listeners, we rolled out a municipal bond portfolio.
Individual bonds.
Yeah, all individual bonds. That works out very, very well. And that's where tax planning and investment planning, work together. So if you do have a high tax rate, something like municipal bonds in a separately managed account, individual bonds might be of interest, as well as direct indexing. That's another area where you're combining tax management with investment management simultaneously. And I think those are just two examples, as well as the trust planning that we were just talking about, that we're going to continuously get better, right? We're going to continuously look to add new services, new offerings. So this is a moment in time, of course, 2025 and 2026, but I certainly want everyone to know that we're not done. Right. And we're going to continue to look to get better, continue to add, new services, new value, and always sort of ride that cutting edge of what modern financial planning needs.
Yeah. I think it's like, as we internally, the three of us have always been so driven this is our 23rd or 24th year in business. So it's So it's sometimes you have to sit back and be like, it's good as a year in review to be like, hey, I know we're always looking ahead, like Matt's always looking at the next thing, and we always are, because that's what we've been doing for 20-something years. But if you think of where we are and the value that's being offered is 20 times better than what I envisioned looking back at ourselves in 2003 as young pups in the industry. As I joke around with clients, you probably wouldn't want to go with us at that point 24, 23 years ago. We're good people. We had no ability and no infrastructure to support what we do now 24 years later. So it's been an amazing run, and God willing, we have plenty more years left. But anything else, guys, that as we look back on 2025 and the previous years, or look towards 2026, obviously we can't control the market, but what you can control is all the other things, around tax bracket management and how your money's invested and risk score and all these things there's a lot of things you can control. Can't control the market, but you can control a lot of other things within surrounding the market in your plan to give you hopefully some confidence and clarity on moving forward.
Yeah, and I think I'll just hit on that sort of note that we've hit upon, is that certain things don't change, and that is just making sure that people get the best customer service, that people are treated the way they want to be treated. So that's not going to change coming into 2026, nor is the need to have a plan. No matter where you are, you need to have a good plan that covers all those areas. Yep. So that's not going to change. Everything else in regards to the markets and politics and, geopolitics, all of that stuff, yeah, that's going to be extremely volatile. That's going to be frantic and hectic and emotional and whatnot. So just always focus on what doesn't change as much as you can, because as long as you're doing that right, then the rest of it usually is a sideshow.
Yeah, and I would just say a lot of people listen to this podcast and other podcasts, and sometimes they can be intimidated to take that first step, intimidated to raise their hand to say, look, maybe I do need help in this area, this area, this area. A lot of clients actually came in last year and met with me and actually said that. I've been listening to you guys for years, and I finally, took a shot to come in and visit with you guys. And I said, well, what took you so long? And they were just like, well, I didn't have all my information together, or I didn't,
never will,
or I didn't think like, this is this, I didn't need this service or this service. But then as we sat with them, we uncovered, hey, well, here's where we could provide value. Here's what we could do for you. So what I would say is, now that the new year has come and everyone makes these resolutions, and we've done these resolution shows before, so I'm not trying to resurrect that, but like make your resolution a financial resolution. Get your house in order, and so then you know how to maximize the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years of your life. That's the challenge I have.
Yeah, I think as we, obviously wrap up this podcast and look forward to what comes ahead, I mean, there's always something to tweak, something to improve. There's, folks that have listened to us for years. A lot of them are clients, which we appreciate their support over the years. And I think one of the things, if you want to take it a step further, is that I've been in this business since 2001. I was a finance major for years before that. And myself, I couldn't do this. If I was retired, I couldn't do all this. Like, I rely on our portfolio team and CFAs to handle that portion. I rely on our CFPs and our planning team to keep up to date with all the changing laws of Congress, who's in office, what they're doing versus the next president versus who's in, there's so much that goes on that I've been in the business for this long and I couldn't even keep track of it all. And this is what I do for a living. So it's okay to not feel like you have a grasp on everything, but that's what we're here for, to help point you in the right direction. And I think hopefully, as you see from these podcasts, like, we did a ton this year on so many different topics around donating and the best way to donate money. And Matt did topics on Allianz Bernstein and the municipal bond portfolio. If you're gonna if you're in a money market getting 3 or 4% and you can get a similar yield but not pay taxes on it, it's like, hey, maybe consider that. Things like that. So hopefully we brought some good value. We're ready to go into 2026 and add a ton more value on future podcasts. But we wish everyone a great 2026 ahead. And for myself, Keith, and Matt at SHP Financial, we'll be talking to you very soon. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Roadmap podcast by SHP Financial. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button so future episodes are automatically downloaded directly to your device. And if you've liked what you heard, please share the show. Create your own little ripples so we can help even more people with their retirement goals. If you want access to all past interviews, including notes, resources, and exclusive content from SHP Financial, visit shpfinancial.com/podcast. Thanks again for joining us on the Retirement Roadmap podcast. And for all the attorneys out there, and disclaimers and disclosures, I'm just going to put on my super serious voice and add our own. No statements made during the Retirement Roadmap podcast shall constitute tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult your own legal or tax professional on any such matters. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk, and unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Our investment advisory services are offered through SHP Wealth Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance sales are offered through SHP Financial, LLC. Our advisors and insurance reps may offer clients advice and/or products from each entity. No client is under any obligation to purchase any insurance product.